Hello, everybody, and welcome to round 15 of the 2021 GP4 Offline Championship. We are here at the popular Korea International Circuit in Yeongnam for the Korean Grand Prix here in South Korea. I'm JW97, and I'm joined today by my arch nemesis Ra.
Yep. Hello, everybody, and of course, hello to you, Joe.
Oh, indeed. We are here at South Korea. As you can see, no rain expected for practice, and no test drivers to report on, so we might as well get underway with it. Of course, last time out at the Japanese Grand Prix, it was a bit of an interesting race, to say. Changeable weather, which in the end saw Franco Gamba take the victory to increase his lead at the top of the championship, with Evan Byrne in second. And George Roke, even though he was not feeling confident being stuck on those dry tyres towards the end, managing to pick up third place and some important points for Red Bull's Constructors' Championship. We come into this race, of course, knowing as well, for anybody who didn't see on Twitter, that the latest team news came out, because I'm still not in a position yet to bring back the full team news just yet. But we got news today that Felix Sontag will be remaining at Williams for yet another season. No real surprise, Ra?
Yeah, no real surprise. He's done a great job. Considering the car he has, he would have hoped for a better car. But of course, Williams going into next season with new engines, with Lamborghini engines. So we'll see how they can do, and I think Felix will be ready for the challenge.
Indeed so, and of course with Lamborghini engines next season, they'll be hoping they can go a little bit further up the grid in 2022, as of course they'll be splitting away with Mercedes at the end of this season. Of course, one thing to note as well is that we do have one driver on the grid that will have a grid penalty for this race, that being Joseph Willows. He's got a 5-place grid penalty for this race as a result of a crash that he had towards the end of the race with Franco Lopez, which also led to Miklos Gau losing his front wing when he could have taken advantage and possibly got himself his first points finish since the podium he got at the Monaco Grand Prix. But that didn't happen, of course, and Willows has ended up with a 5-place grid penalty. Another race that Franco Lopez has not scored any points. He is still mathematically in with a shout of the championship, but I think it is safe to say, Ra, I think he's probably not going to retain the title this season.
Yeah, and considering that he hasn't scored in the last four races, that is not what defending world champion has is doing. But of course, this is not ideal for Lopez, and you could say his qualifying's been weak, and sometimes he makes some mistakes, and also been a bit unlucky. And yeah, sometimes he has chances to win, but he doesn't take them. But yeah, he doesn't really have the pace, unfortunately.
And speaking of people who didn't have the pace last time out at the Japanese Grand Prix, we're looking at him right now. Andre Videri, of course, who, despite having a very good qualifying session, only managing to get into third position. It's safe to say that in the race, it didn't really go according to plan for him.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, he was doing well holding up Armor car, but um, after the pit stops, he really struggled and then just caused a major incident. And yeah, he did have a penalty, but of course he retired with a gearbox failure.
And as you mentioned there, really annoying Armar car during that race, and Armar probably feeling that if it wasn't for Federa, he probably could have been a little bit more closer to the front of the field, but obviously that wasn't the case. We're looking at Amelia Wilson in the Haas meanwhile, and well, if you may remember at the start of the season, Ra, we were praising Haas really, given it looked like they had an improved car, but in the second half of the season, hasn't really gone according to plan. They're once again last in the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, being lost in the constructors championship is not ideal, and considering that the car they have, it's clearly quicker than the AlphaTauri and the Williams, but they just can't take their chance. They just can't get the good performances in the races, and yet the qualifying has been strong. We've seen it in some of the recent races, but I mean in their race pace, it's not there. But also the fact that they're just annoying a lot of drivers.
Yeah, indeed, and well, As we said, it was for Daniel Fraser. He had quite a big crash, it's safe to say, at Suzuka, and pretty much adding to what has been a very frustrating second half of the season for Fraser. So much so that although we mentioned it in the pilot episode that Fraser was looking more likely to be retained, it seemed that over this second half of the season, that opinion might have swayed a bit.
Yeah, indeed, but of course, competition is a little weak for us. But then again, we'll see. Of course, Fraser hasn't been able to show what he did in the first half of the season. Will he be able to recapture that? We'll find out. But yeah, he needs good results here.
As we rode on board with Jamie Griffiths, who just had a little bit of an error going through into the right-hander, getting overtaken by one of the Lamborghinis there. I think that was Laura Chung that went by. His car now goes to the top with a 1 minute 34.139, goes 1/10 quicker than Franco Gama. Griffiths will be hoping that he gets retained as well, because of course, as I mentioned, of course, Sontag is staying at Williams for next season. That was officially confirmed on Twitter just before the stream went on the air. But the question is, who will be Felix's teammate? Will it still be Jamie Griffiths, or could it be someone else? That's going to be the question. I think the general consensus is that people believe that Jamie will get retained, but you never know, of course. Things could happen within these last 7 races, I believe we have left. Of course, this is round 15 of 21. Anything can still happen, of course. One driver who had a fantastic race at Japan last time out, was, of course, Romain Quag. A lot of people were starting to question whether he had started to lose a little bit of his form in the second half of the season, given that he had a very strong first half of the season. But it just seemed that in recent races, it felt that Videri may have had the pace on him. But in Japan, it seemed that we got first half of the season Quag back underway, really.
Yeah, indeed. And will he be able to keep up the form? We'll see. I mean, of course, the qualifying, he hasn't been able to get that right, of course. Lagging behind Federi, of course, in qualifying within the second half of the season, but of course, in the race pace, he's got it. And yeah, he showed it in Japan. But if he can keep this momentum up, he might have a good chance on being in the top class.
Yeah, and we'll have to wait and see how that one how that one goes. Of course, let's not forget he is in contention for the Renault seat along with Jesus Perinen and of course Julius Anderson, and that obviously is going to be very interesting to see which direction Renault ends up going in for their 2022 lineup, because of course we know that Evan Byrne is going to Red Bull next season, so that of course leaves obviously 1 vacant seat at Renault for next season. Could it be 2 though? Could we see Jesus Perinen potentially lose out to both Julius and Roman, and Jesus ends up battling with George Rote for the second Red Bull seat? We'll have to wait and see, of course, as it looks like cars are about to lock up going through into the bus stop chicane here, and he had a bit of a lock up, but able to correct it just in the nick of time. We were talking about a little bit of Aston Martin earlier on there, because it's safe to say in Japan, it was probably deemed as an Aston Martin disaster class. Both of them getting time penalties during that race for causing some very silly incidents.
Yep, indeed. And both of them pretty much involved Jesus Pernin, which was worst case scenario. You could say Jesus Pernin has been very unlucky in that, but he did manage to get a point. But of course, the Aston Martins not ideal. Of course, yeah. Getting penalties. Of course, they did run into each other as well in the first incident. Then the second incident was just all on Roland.
Indeed, and well, they'll want to forget that one pretty quickly. Could that leave some question marks perhaps on Roland's future at Aston Martin? Because of course he is obviously rumoured to still be with the team for next season, but as we alluded to in the pilot episode, it's not that secure. I think an incident like that, that potentially have harmed his chances a little bit of being retained.
Yeah. Of course, he's not had the greatest of seasons, of course, and we can also admit that he's not where Anderson has been during this season. Anderson's been able to pick up the results while Roland hasn't most of the time. And yeah, he needs to try and pick up the form that he had within last season and try and translate it into this season, and also retain his seat.
Indeed so, as Chatfield trying to get by on one of the Hasses there. I think that is Amelia Wilson who's trying to get by to the first corner, which he has done. So far, Chatfield currently, where is he at the moment? Currently P6 so far in this session. His teammate Jake Galloway currently 8th as things stand at the moment. Car currently top ahead of Chung and Gamba at this stage of practice, as Sontag is still the only one so far to be over 2 seconds off at this stage. Might as well talk about what else was I going to talk about? Actually, I kind of lost my train of thought a little bit there. But we talked about how Hayes' Perinin pretty much it's safe to say, a bit of a punching bag at the Japanese Grand Prix, as you alluded to, being punted a couple of times and getting damage on 2 occasions through, well, no fault of his own really, but yet somehow, thanks to everything that was going on during the changeable conditions period, he managed to scrape a point in the end. So not exactly an ideal race for him, but at least he was able to get some kind of compensation, really, in terms of all the collisions he had during the race.
Yeah, and it could be worth it for his future, but then again, we'll have to wait to see. He needs to try and get back into the form where he's been getting podiums, but will he be able to get a race win? We'll see.
Have to wait and see indeed, as we look at Franco Gamba, the current championship leader, currently getting held up by one of the Aston Martins. I think that's Julius Anderson that he's coming up behind, and it is Anderson. It says number 34 on the car, as Gamba's just making his way out of that 90-degree right-hander there, as we're currently riding on board with Roland Motrin in the Aston Martin, as Motrin now they're making his way onto the long back straight, which I believe is actually longer than the back straight at Abu Dhabi. So that's an interesting note there. So obviously I might as well mention as well, because Yui did put this on Discord, the World Champ Car sign-up should be open this Sunday, but he did also put in brackets, unless his brain decides to go into full limbo mode. So much like mine does on some occasions. So yeah, he has said this Sunday, but I will try to remind him just to ensure that he doesn't end up having his brain clogged with other things going on in his little world that's going on at the moment where he is. So yeah, it should be, the sign-ups for World Champ Car should be out this Sunday, so just bear in mind of that one as we now look at the 2 AlphaTauris who are pretty much giving each other slips during the moment. Gal across the line, no improvement. Q-Pop, no improvement either. Gal, we just talked about a little bit earlier on, Ra. Of course, you could say got denied a chance at points after what happened with Lopez and Willows, after he caught some debris and ended up losing, ended up crashing out as well as a direct result of that. And, yeah, a bit gutted for Gal, really, because so far this season, the only time he scored points is obviously when he got that podium at Monaco.
Yeah, it's not the season where he's hoping for. He pretty much was hoping for a rebuild for AlphaTauri, but I mean, this is pretty much a tough journey to get back into glory days. But we'll see. I mean, he has to secure his future in the top class, but yeah, it's not ideal. I mean, yeah, he could have gotten points, of course, in Japan, but yeah, luck wasn't. Of course, he caught debris, and yeah, he'll be looking forward to try and get some points in Korea.
Yeah, well, at least tried to anyway, because of course Gal did win here last season when he was at Red Bull, and obviously last season here at the Korean Grand Prix it was quite a chaotic race in the wet conditions, especially involving Gal as well, because it's safe to say that he was very lucky to survive at Korea, given what happened at the pit entrance with him and George Roque, and yeah. That happened, really, and Gal lucky to obviously get away with that one and go on to win the race. And it was also in that race that we saw something very unique happen with the Red Bull pit mechanics as well when it came to changing his front wing. They basically didn't bother, really, and it just reappeared like magic, like we saw a couple of times this season, in fact, with Chris Chatfield, I believe it was, at Ferrari. So it seems some other teams might have had that bit of technology there. So a little bit weird, but of course, Gal did go on to dominate this race after what happened with the 2 Mercedeses at the bus stop chicane, really. Not that they made contact with each other. It was more of a back marker issue. I think it was with Jamie Griffiths, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, pretty much that. And, obviously, if it is wet, I think a lot of these drivers will be hoping it's not as chaotic as what it was last season here at the Korean Grand Prix. Anyway, we now look back at Chris Chatfield, currently in 6th position, as he's now making his way down towards the hairpin before making his way onto the support pit straight. So we look back now at Gal, who's still got Qpok right behind him at the moment. For anybody wondering, the tyres we're using here for the Korean Grand Prix is the soft tyres. Of course, the last 3 races we had been using the hard compound of tyres, but finally some variation. We're actually using the soft tyres, so be interested to see which strategy will be correct here at Korea. Should it be dry? Will it be a 2-stop or a 3-stop? That'll be interesting. Meanwhile, Gamba now goes to the top of the timing sheets. He breaks into the 1 minute 33s, a 1 minute 33.920. So Gamba now to the top of the timing sheets in the Red Bull now. Then goes 2 tenths quicker than Amar Kar, his nearest rival in the championship, as we ride on board with Jesus Perinen, who's looking to try and get some good luck here after a race where he was pretty much a punching bag at the Japanese Grand Prix for the Aston Martins, and I think also for Dairy as well, because he caused the collision in that race as well. As we look at Laura Chung, who's trying to find her way through on one of the Mercedes, is there as she gets the move done into the first corner. And Chung currently third at the moment during this practice session, meanwhile. And we've got back at Gal now. Only 2 cars in the pit lane, Galloway and Qpok. So Qpok, after following Gal throughout this session, has now come back into the pit. Moving on a bit now, we might as well move on to McLaren, and a Japanese Grand Prix to forget for McLaren, really, for 2 reasons. Of course, Kirishima DeRosa, mechanical failure quite early on in the race. Maybe a case of Kirishima D unlucky again, striking Kiro on this occasion. And of course, Joseph Willows, we talked about as well, has got a 5-place grid penalty for causing a crash with Franco Lopez towards the end of the Grand Prix. So wherever Willows ends up in qualifying later on tonight for the qualifying session, he will drop 5 places back for tomorrow's race here at Yeognam. But yeah, a race that McLaren will want to forget, Ra, and as a result, they are starting to lose ground to Lamborghini in their little fight for 5th in the constructors.
Yeah, like results like this is not ideal, and of course with rival teams actually, gaining points on them, it's not good. I mean, they clearly do have a better package than Lamborghini, but I feel like their reliability sometimes can be a bit of a question mark. I mean, even with the tires, considering that Kirishima DeRosa got a puncture. Yeah, and also, so yeah, incidents as well for Joseph Willows, not ideal, and they just want a clean race pretty much.
Yep, and especially Willows, who of course will have, he'll drop 5 places back from wherever he ends up in qualifying a little bit later on, and he'll be looking to put that race behind him as quick as possible. As we look now at Jesus Perinen in the Renault now, then he's now making his way down towards the hairpin, still yet to get his first ever victory in the top class. We know the Renault has got some good pace, but they've only managed 1 victory this season of Renault in the form of Evan Byrne. Jesus Perinen has come close on a couple of occasions, but for various reasons it hasn't happened. As meanwhile, George Roke now goes to the top of the timing sheets with a 1 minute 33.845, so it is now a Red Bull 1-2 with Roke now at the top. And Roke, of course, needing to put in some good results because, of course, he wants to be retained as he's trying his best to get retained by Red Bull for next season because of all the pressure that's surrounding him, especially with all the rumours about Patel and Perinen. Should they be booted out of their current seats respectively, they could have a chance to boot Roke out of Red Bull. So it's going to be a bit of an interesting one, really. Roke doing everything he can to ensure that he's still with the Milton Keynes base team for next season. But yeah. We mentioned that's a race to forget for McLaren at the Japanese Grand Prix. And so moving on to Ferrari, really. I guess in a way, Ferrari had a bit of a quiet race at the Japanese Grand Prix. We've got a crash. We've got a crash. Hold the phone. We've got a crash involving an AlphaTauri and a Lamborghini, that being Chung, and I think that's Miklos Gal, and it is Miklos Gal. So both of their sessions have come to an end, and I've got a feeling it's got something to do with that turn 2, especially with how drivers can sometimes go wide at that corner. Keep an eye on the wheels that are around. I think everybody is just avoiding those wheels, but in terms of Gal and Chung, that's their session done with.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think the session could be done with, but we'll see if the host. It depends if the host decides if the sessions are done. But yeah, that's a big shame if it is.
to be fair, I think Ra may have got himself a bit confused there. I didn't say session ended, Ra. I meant their session's ended because, of course, we have a spare car ban. So, we
Oh,
got another car
Chatfield.
off, and that's Chris Chatfield. I think he's caught one of the wheels. I think so. That's his session done with. So 3 cars in the wall as a result. Where's that? Oh, it's the invisible damage, I think. And it's his own front wing that caused it actually. So his own front wing has caused that. So. A bit of a bizarre accident there for Chatfield, but whatever the case, his session is also over. So only 3 cars sessions are done with, as that Hasta was very lucky not to sustain any damage from that, as we're having to pause just to ensure the spare car ban gets used. Whilst we were just saying there as well, Jake Galloway has gone into 3rd position, meanwhile, in the other Ferrari, so up into P3. He goes now in the session, as I think the spare car ban has now been applied to all 3 of those drivers, as the yellow flag not at the moment. Okay. So, what about the other 2? Is Gal in the gap? Okay. So Gal and Chatfield are currently appearing in the garage. Chong at the moment has not appeared yet in the garage, so we're just trying to apply the the spare car ban for those 3 cars at the moment. But yeah, Galloway went in the 3rd, and as I was saying there before that crash happened, Ralph, Ferrari had a pretty of a quiet race at the Japanese Grand Prix, only managing 8th and 9th. So yeah, not really a race for them to remember.
He was 7th and 8th because they got 10 points in that race, so he was 7th and 8th. But yeah, quiet race, but yeah. Yeah, no idea, but of course, Galloway did start way back down in 17th, I think, or was it 16th?
Well, he was outside. I think it was
Yeah, it
17th.
was
Yeah,
out.
because he was
Yeah.
eliminated in Q1. And of course, you obviously had those 2 drivers who obviously had the 10th place grid penalty. So was that really? As But yeah, he started down in 17th, so a good recovery for Galloway, but still not an ideal race for him. And Ferrari will be looking to have a strong week here at Korea. I mean, Galloway's got up into 3rd meanwhile, so that could be a sign of things to come. We're still trying to get the spare car ban implemented, I think, at the moment. So yeah, that's that really. As I think Yuri is waiting for Chung to appear in the garage. So as chat as wait to see where Chung is at the moment. Chung's still not in the garage at the moment. So I don't know what's happened to Chung really. So as the Red Bull's stuck actually. If you've frozen the wrong driver there, Yuri, but it looks like Garma's a bit stuck at the moment. So yeah, so anyway, as we were saying, there's Patel who's just come back into the pits now. Then, so Patel now in the pit lane, currently in 14th position at the moment. Lamborghini, pretty of a solid outing at the Japanese Grand Prix. Chung had a pretty strong showing, and Patel getting a few points as well. But yeah, not as Chung has now appeared in the garage. So. Yeah, a solid race at the Japanese Grand Prix, and as we talked about a little bit earlier with McLaren, able to pull away a little bit more in the constructors.
Yeah, and of course they didn't really gain or even lose points to Ferrari, so the gap up to Ferrari is like the same as as the race before, even before the Japanese Grand Prix. So yeah, I mean it's possible they could get Ferrari, but only time will tell. They just need to keep it up.
I think it's going to be a little bit of an ask for them to try and get Ferrari in the constructors, but anything is possible, of course, and we've still got 7 races for that to really to settle that out, really, as yeah. So yeah, that's that really. As we've now got things underway yet again. As Chatfield for some reason is getting prepared again.
Oh no.
think Yuri may have reacted a little bit late to the cars because I think he was waiting for. In fact, I don't think he's moving actually. No,
No,
he's not
it's not.
moving. I don't think he's moving. So that's that. As we wait for so at the moment then while Yui gets everything so let's just go through the line. Let's go through how the practice session currently looks. Roke at the top with Garber in second, then it is Galloway third, Carr fourth with Chung in fifth, for Dairy sixth, then Burn seventh with Chatfield eighth, Perrin in ninth, Willows in 10th, followed by Anderson in 11th. Then it is Quag in 12th position, followed by DeRosa 13th, Patel 14th, Fraser 15th, Motrin in 16th, followed by Lopez 17th, Griffiths 18th, Wilson 19th, Cupok 20th, Gal 21st, and Sontag in 22nd position. And as I was speaking there, Bernard's actually got up into 5th position. He's actually just got above Chung there, so he gets himself into 5th position in the Renault at the moment.
Okay.
There you go. I think Yuri has just fixed Garber there, I think, as he's just got him to
Yep.
move a little bit more further in the garage there. So I guess the mechanics will try and head his way again. Might require a bit of a hold up in the pit lane, but everybody's just trying to go around him. I think the mechanics will just have to walk towards him. So we'll see if this all works out. And no, the mechanics are still there apparently. So I don't know what exactly is going on with Garmer's car at the moment because apparently it just got stuck and Yuri tried to unstuck him there, but it just seems like it hasn't worked there. So that's that. As just looking around to see what the rest of the pack is going. I think we obviously just saw one of the Mercedes go out on track. Not really sure which one that was because both of them are out on track. That being Carl and Lopez. Lopez all the way down in 17th at the moment. He's not having the best of sessions at the moment. I mean, we talked about how the inconsistency of the Mercedes has been throughout this season in terms of qualifying, and just seems that. Well, for Lopez, it seems like it's just been getting gradually worse these last few races.
Yeah, it's not what he wants, of course. Of course, he is still in the championship hunt, but of course, it's a bit of a tough ask for him. He just really needs to find his mojo and at least get a win.
Indeed, as we're still trying to figure out how to get Garmer's car unstuck, as as I believe that's Galloway who's just gone out onto the racetrack there. So yeah, that's Galloway. He's obviously gone out on track because, of course, Chatfield is not taking any further part in the session due to crashing out a little bit earlier on. As Patel has now just gone out onto the track for Lamborghini. As we're still trying to suss things out here with the Red Bull, and so that's that really. As we have still around 16 minutes to go in this practice session, and so as we wait to see. As we wait to see, I forgot what my train of thought was there. So obviously, Roke's still at the top at the moment. It's a Red Bull 1-2 or 133.845 for Roke at this stage. Both Red Bulls obviously in the pits at the moment. Of course, Gamba, or I say that, but Roke has just gone by there. So perfect timing, Joe. So Roke has now just gone out onto the racetrack as we're still trying to unstuck Gamba if we can. I mean, we've seen this a few times in F2 with the Cheroos, but reason we can't seem to get Gamba unstuck at this point. So anyway, as there's 18 cars out on the track now, then I mean all the cars that should be out on track at this moment, as we have still 15 minutes to go in this session, and so that's that really. As we wait to see if we can get back onto the normal camera at the moment, and I don't think Yuri's going to be able to shift this car anytime. So that really. So I think his car is totally stuck. I think so. So we wait as we have just over 15 minutes to go now. Then in this practice session, as Roke is still at the top with Garber in second, Galloway third, Carr in fourth, then Byrne in fifth, Chung in 6th with Aderi 7th, Chatfield in 8th, Perrin in 9th, Willows in 10th, with Quagga 11th, Anderson 12th, then it is DeRosa 13th, Patel 14th, Fraser 15th, Motrin 16th, followed by Lopez in 17th, then Griffiths is in 18th, with Wilson 19th, Cupot 20th, Gal 21st, and Sontag in 22nd position. And so as we wait to see if we can get back onto normal cameras, I think a few cars are now just coming to the pits. I think Sontag, well, I say that, but I think one of the Williams has just gone out on the track. I think that will be Sontag, in fact, because he was already in the pits, I think. So, Sontag going back out to the racetrack as Wilson is now just coming to. No, in fact, sorry, it was Griffiths who just came into the pits to do apologies there. I kind of read that a little bit wrong. Griffiths is now in the pits in the Williams, and so that really as it looks like there's a little bit of shifting going on now on the Red Bull. I did see a slight movement of it going backwards as Anderson is just going out to the racetrack Yuri has tried everything, but he can't seem to move it. So I guess we just have to leave him. It seems everybody can get around him though, so that's important. So we'll have to leave him, I'm afraid. As Carr, meanwhile, has got up into 4th place in the Mercedes, and so P4 at the moment for Carr at this stage. So obviously we talked about Carr just a brief bit, of course, but he felt that he probably could have been a little bit more closer to the Red Bulls if he wasn't being held up by Verderi for most of the race. Is he right to think that, Ra?
Yeah, I think he is right to think that, and yeah, it could have made it an interesting title fight again, but then again, it could go back to Armor Car's favor.
Perhaps, and so Gamba, of course, now has, I think, around a 21-point lead, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. But, no, I don't think it's a 21-point lead, is it? I think it's a little bit smaller than that. Well, whatever the case, obviously able to increase his lead at the top as a result. And Roke, of course, obviously finishing in 3rd last time out, as we mentioned, on the dry tyres. He thought for a while he was going to lose that podium place, Ra. But I think it's fair to say, I think he may have been being a little bit negative towards himself because he had quite a big gap to everybody behind him.
Yeah, the strategy really worked for him, and even though he was at the end, it still worked out. He still got a podium anyway, so yeah, he will take it.
As we ride on board with Rahul Patel, who in fact went exactly a second slower than George Roke from that lap, and he's just made a little bit of an error going through into the first few corners there. So as we have just under 12 minutes to go in this practice session before we get on to the qualifying session, which will determine the grid for tomorrow's Korean Grand Prix. And it will be interesting to see who ends up getting pole for the race tomorrow. Of course, obviously we returned here back in 2019. Let's not forget, as a result of the issues we had with the Singapore circuit, and this has been on the calendar since 2019. And so far, since it's come back, we've had 2 different winners in the form of Lopez and Gal. Very high chance that we could get a different winner, but who knows really? As we continue to ride aboard of Rahul Patel, he finds himself 1.3 seconds down on Roke in the second sector there. I've noticed that the third sector is actually quite a lengthy one around this circuit, where they've placed the... as I say that, I think the first sector is actually quite lengthy, I should have said there. Quite a little bit lengthy, it's fair to say, for most of the lap, as Patel now then just making his way around the section of corners now then, through the right-hander, and then into the final few turns he will go. I'm not expecting him to improve, but let's see as he now makes his way around this long swooping right-hander. Now coming around the final turn and onto the pit straight he will go as Patel crosses the line in the Lamborghini. No improvement, he stays where he is, stays in 15th position for the time being, as the Haas there of, I think that's Daniel Fraser's just gone out, because that was the Sebastian Vettel helmet. So Fraser's just gone out onto the track, so Patel will want to try and pass him as quick as possible. Can he get it done just just before the hairpin here. He's alongside. You can actually overtake around the outside on this track, but not on this occasion. Fraser saying no to that one. So he's just going to stay in front for the time being, as he's trying to look towards the outside going into the bus stop there. Not going to walk out there. And as we now make our way around the bus stop chicane now then here at the Korea International Circuit, here is Joseph Willows, who, that was very close to contact with Jake Galloway there, as Willows is actually coming into the pits this lap. In fact, he's holding up a train of cars at the moment. Willows currently in 10th at the moment, DeRosa in 13th, not exactly the most ideal sessions for McLaren, as meanwhile Hayes Perrinin in the Renault gets up into 7th, whilst Motrin goes up into 14th position, slotting in front of Rahul Patel. As Willows now then making his way through into the final few turns on the racetrack now then. Willows now then coming into the pits as expected. And hopefully we don't see the pit entrance glitch that we saw last season with both Gal and Roke. Although it is quite a rare glitch, I don't think we'll want to see that again anytime soon. So, of course, a little bit of a fact about this circuit, of course. There was originally meant to be a city that was built around it, but due to budget reasons, that never materialised, and we've ended up just having a circuit with quite a plain surrounding around it as a result. So, yeah. So, if you ever wondered when F1 had a race here back in 2013 and even before then why it looked a little bit empty around the track, that's the reason. It was supposed to have a city built around it, a lot of buildings, but it never materialised due to financial reasons. So, and that's obviously what ended up, I think, leading to the race being scrapped after the 2013 season, just because they couldn't afford to pay to have a Grand Prix around there anymore. So, pretty much that. As Motrin now then, as we're looking at him in the Aston Martin, he's currently, meanwhile his teammate has a big lockup going through into the right-hander there. For a minute there was that Motrin, but it wasn't. We actually just cut back to his teammate Anderson there, and he's had a massive lockup going through into the right-hander. As Perrinin further improves to go up into 5th position, just slotting in front of his teammate Evan Byrne. And as a result of that mistake, Anderson now finds himself 3 seconds off in that middle sector. So now Anderson making his way through into the final few turns on the racetrack. And so now coming around the long swooping right-hander then, we'll go Julius Anderson in the Aston Martin as Anderson crosses the line, does not improve. Q-Pop meanwhile does improve, but he stays in 20th position. As Anderson just making his way through into the first corner. Sontag just making his way out on the track, so he might get a little bit held up by the Williams driver if he's not careful. So we're just over 7 minutes to go. This is what the leaderboard now currently looks like. Roke at the top with Garber in 2nd, followed by Galloway 3rd. Carr 4th with Perrinin in 5th. Byrne in 6th, then it is Chung 7th. Verderi in 8th, followed by Chatfield 9th. Willows in 10th, followed by Quagg in 11th. Then it is Anderson 12th. DeRosa 13th. Motrin in 14th. Patel in 15th. Followed by Fraser in 16th. Lopez in 17th. Then it is Griffiths 18th. Wilson 19th. Kupok in 20th. With Sontag 21st. And Gal in 22nd and last. Of course, just to remind you as well, Chung, Chatfield and Gal are out of this session, of course, due to the spare car ban. Those three were involved in a crash just at the exit of Turn 2. And Garber is stuck in the pit lane due to, I think, a little glitch that happened whilst we went on to the replay for some reason. So, that's that. As now we look at Julius Anderson now then. He's just coming around the right-hander. And let's see what his second sector looks like. 1.7 seconds down, so he's not on an improvement, is the Swedish driver, and probably getting some mileage in that Aston Martin. Of course, Aston Martin desperate to forget what happened at the Japanese Grand Prix last time out, both of them getting time penalties. Anderson getting a 20-second time penalty, whereas I think, or was it a 10-second? It was one of the two. I think, in fact, no, it was Motrin who got the 20-second time penalty and Anderson got the 10-second time penalty. But either way, one to forget, and I'm pretty sure the higher-ups at Aston Martin were not very happy with what Roland and Julius were producing at the Japanese Grand Prix, and would like to move away from that pretty quickly. So, as Anderson now they're making his way down towards the hairpin before making his way down the support pit straight. Just under 5.5 minutes to go now then. This practice session. As Anderson now then making his way towards the bus stop chicane now then. As we've still got, as mentioned, just over 5 minutes to go this session now then. And so Anderson making his way through the right-hander and then into the left will go now then. So that really, and so Anderson now coming around the right-hander, and we talked about a little bit earlier on, Ra, how we mentioned how Lamborghini had quite a strong performance last time out. Well, it would have been even more points if Patel didn't get any damage a little bit earlier on, but he was very lucky to pick up 9th place in the end. But you said yourself that you didn't deserve any points for some reason.
Yeah, mainly down to pace. I was like, I don't know, like 18th or 20th fastest in the fastest lap. So yeah, and of course there was the. I mean, yeah, of course it was dry at the start, but I mean, considering that it went up, it was a big struggle because those tires really died.
Byrne, meanwhile, has just gone up into 5th position, so he's just got back ahead of teammate Perinin as Griffiths is coming into the pits, and I would imagine that might be his final run in practice due to how much time there is left on the clock. So I think that will be Griffiths done for practice. Next time we'll see him, of course, will be in the qualifying session. Of course, Griffiths doing everything he can to ensure he gets retained at Williams for next season. So anyway, as Griffiths now then making his way to the hairpin now then. Griffiths now then making his way down the support pit straight now then before approaching the bus stop chicane as Byrne was up on his well, in fact I say that, but he hasn't gone through the first sector. Byrne got up to 5th, but now he's being held up by the Aston Martin of I think that is Julius Anderson he's currently getting held up by, so not exactly ideal for Evan Byrne as he now makes his way through into these next section of corners now then. Or approaching the end of Sector 2 with just over 3 minutes to go in this session now then. And so might as well mention as well, because I bet there'll be some of you who'll be wondering what's going on with my Mac. Well, I've got charging issues, it's fair to say. Despite getting a new charger on Sunday, it hasn't resolved the issue, I'm afraid. So I think I'm going to have to... It's clearly an internal problem with the charger, so I'm probably going to need to look at either repairing it ourselves or maybe sending it back to the repair shop. Hopefully we don't end up at the latter stage, but let's see what happens with it. But that's just the thing really that's prevented me from doing highlights at the moment and getting the new series back underway. So yeah, it's a bit of a pain. I think I mentioned a couple of months ago, in fact a month ago on Twitter, saying that I'm probably one of the most unluckiest people when it comes to laptops, really, because it has felt like that these last couple of years, that I've had quite a lot of bad luck with not just this computer, but with various other computers as well. My old gaming laptop and even my current gaming laptop, which is having issues with OBS, as you know. So, yeah, I'm just a very unlucky person, it's fair to say. But hopefully, things will be back to normal as soon as I can. As soon as I'm in a position where I'm able to get back to editing, I will inform you guys of it. Don't you worry about that. I won't leave you in the cold, don't worry. But anyway, we're now going to ride on board with the drivers for the remainder of the session as Lopez is up on his personal best, but only by a 10th of a second. He's not really set the world alight in this practice session. I wonder if he's just getting some race mileage in and not actually trying to push. Maybe he's waiting to push during qualifying. We'll have to wait and see, really. But Lopez now then just coming around the long swooping right-hander, and Lopez now then coming down the pit straight, and across the line he will go, and he remains in 17th but improves on his personal best there. As now we look at David Kupok in the AlphaTauri, he does not improve and he stays in 20th position. As here is, we saw Evan Byrne there just about to start lap, yet same for Amelia Wilson, they'll get one more flying lap before the end. Here's Wilson's teammate, Daniel Fraser, across the line he will go, no improving, he stays where he is for the time being. De Rosa starting his lap doing his one and only flying lap soon. Joseph Willows across the line, no improvement, stays where he is. Amar Carr in the Mercedes crosses the line, no improvement, stays where he is. Jake Galloway across the line, stays where he is, which is P number 3. I think Patel will get one more flying lap in, but we will see. As Perinin now then, as we ride on board with the Renault driver. As now coming around the left-hander then, we'll go Jesus Perinin as he now makes his way through into the final few turns, and yet, as Rod just said, I just had Dob commentator in the background. So apologies there. So Jesus Perinin now then going around the long swooping right-hander and now making his way onto the pit straight, and across the line he will go, and he does not improve. 8 seconds left. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and checkered flag is out. That is the end of the session. Who was last across the line? Because for some reason we're still paying attention to Jesus Perinin. Is Yuri around? Who crossed the line last? I think it might have been...
It was Perinin.
It was Perinin, luckily. I thought for a minute there Yuri had fell asleep. So anyway, as Lopez just coming down the pit straight, does not improve and he stays in 17th position. David Cupock now then, just making his way onto the pit straight, and across the line he will go, and he does not improve. He stays where he is. As Wilson's up on her personal best in the Haas, as she will now make her way onto the pit straight. And she goes into 17th, actually gets above Franco Lopez there, as Roque not able to finish his lap there. As De Rosa, no improvement for him, he stays where he is. As Willows doesn't improve either in the second McLaren. Car, no improvement, he stays in, where is he? In 4th position. As now we look at Patel now then in the Lamborghini, and he's got Jesus Perinin behind, and will of course be the last driver to cross the line before we get into qualifying. And so now we make our way through into the final few turns on the racetrack now then. Patel coming up towards the little long swooping right-hander that's coming up. So through the right-hander he goes to the final corner and onto the pit straight now. Then we'll go Rahul Patel in the Lamborghini, and he does not improve. And we just wait for Perinin to cross the line, which he, I think, has done, has he? Did he just go by? And yes, he has. So that is the session done with Roque top, Garber second, and Galloway in third. So what do you make of that session, Ra?
Interesting session. Of course, with Galloway in third. Of course, the Red Bulls first and second. Will they be able to keep it up in qualifying? We'll see.
So, well, we're just going to take a brief pause for the moment. We'll pause the stream for a minute, and then we'll come back with the qualifying session, of course, a fresh stream for that. But in the meantime, I'm in JW97, he's been Ra, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session. See you in a bit.